Hi guys, if you were not in class on Thursday, October the 1st, here is the agenda that we did in class. We went over problems 5 and 6 from our Unit 1 test overview. If you follow along the next part of the video, I talk about how to do those two problems so you can make those updates and corrections on your Unit 1 test. You are going to need your journal because we are going to take some notes in it. Today's Jamboard is kind of just a follow along, okay? And you do have Khan Academy assignments that you need to work on, okay? Okay, so if we look at problem 5, right, this is a solving equations problem. Our first step that we did was we drew our line down the middle to split up our problem, right? So that way I have a left side and a right side. Okay, what we did next was we checked each side and we asked ourselves if we could simplify, right? If I look at this left-hand side, I notice that I have parentheses, right? So that means that I need to distribute the 3. Remember, when we distribute, we multiply. So on this side, we got 3x minus 18. Okay, then we move to the right-hand side. You can also distribute on this side, right? So I brought down the 8x because I haven't done anything with it yet, right? Then I took this negative 3 and I multiplied it by whatever was inside of my parentheses. Okay, so I did negative 3 times 3x and I got a negative 9x. Then I took my negative 3 and I multiplied it by 7 and I got a negative 21. Okay, so before I could start moving stuff around, I still wanted to make my problem easier, right? I could still simplify by combining these x's right here, right? So 8x minus 9x is where I got that negative 1x right here. Everything else I just brought down from the line above it. 3x minus 18 equals negative 1x is from those box numbers minus 21. Okay, so now I'm ready to start rearranging my problem and doing opposite operation, right? Okay, so one of my students wanted to start with the negative 18, right? Opposite would be plus 18. We've got to add 18 to both sides. Notice how I lined up the 18 with the 18, and I lined up the plus 18 with this negative 21 right here. I cannot line it up with the x, okay? So on the left-hand side, they simplify to be 0, and I'm left with 3x. I brought down my negative 1x. Negative 21 plus 18 is a negative 3. Okay, so from there, I went ahead and I moved that negative 1x to the left. Before I did that, I have to change it to plus 1x, both sides, right? So then my left side became 4x equals negative 3 because these right here canceled out. Negative 1x plus 1x was 0. So then I'm left with 4x equals negative 3, right? In order to get x by itself, I have to divide by 4 on both sides. So when I simplify my left side, I'm left with x is equal to a negative 3/4. So that is how we got answer choice C. Okay, for problem 6, we split up our problem by drawing a line down the middle, right? It gives me a left side and then a right side. I checked my left side. There was nothing that I could do right off the bat. I can't simplify any of that. So then I moved to my right-hand side. On this side, I noticed parentheses, so I can distribute, right? So what I did was 3 times 14x, then I did 3 times a positive 9. Okay, so on the left-hand side, I just brought down what I had. I got 34x plus 95 equals 42x plus 27 when I distribute and multiply. Okay, I'm ready now to start rearranging my problem by doing opposite operation. Okay, I went ahead and I moved that 42x first. In order to move it to the other side, I had to do minus 42x. Okay, notice how I lined it up with the x. right? I didn't put it under the 95. It is lined up here because is the operation I have to do. 34 minus 42x, right? So I'm left with a negative 8x plus 95 is equal to the 42 minus 42 simplified to 0, so I'm left with 27 on the right-hand side. My only option, or my best option, is to move that 95 to the other side by subtracting 95 from both sides. Okay, on the left-hand side, it simplifies to be negative 8x is equal to, right-hand side, if I do 27 minus 95, I get a negative 68. Okay, if I want x to be by itself, I've got to divide it by a negative 8 on both sides. Okay, so then on the left-hand side, I'm left with x, a positive x, right? Because negative divided by negative gives me a positive x is equal to 8.5. Okay, so if we look at our griddable, I don't have a decimal place that's already there for me. So that means I can put my answer choice wherever I want. Okay, so I went ahead and I put my decimal here. Make sure you bubble in. 8 was in front because it was 8.5, right? I put the 5 on the right side of my decimal. Make sure you bubble in, okay? It's good practice for STAR test. Okay, so if you pause the video and grab your journal, we are going to take a few notes before we can start working on our Khan Academy. Okay, so the notes that we took are still talking about slope. Okay, today we're going to focus on how to get slope from a table and how to get slope from a graph. Okay, so they're just different ways that we're given information, right? So the first way, if I draw a table that is horizontal, right? This one is laying down sideways. Okay, I'm just going to put some numbers in there for my x and my y values. Okay, and then I'm going to do another table, same values, right? But I want it to be facing vertically this time. So that way we can see how we get points from a table. So 3 is with 3, 7 is with 8, 11 is with 13. Okay, so I have the same numbers. They're just presented differently because one is horizontal, one is vertical. Okay, so when we use or when we try to find slope from a table, we can use our slope formula that we learned the other day when we're given 2 points, right? So when we're given 2 points, we're automatically given ordered pairs, right? When we're given a table, we have multiple points that we could pick from, okay? I like to pick the first 2 points just because, I don't know, I see those first, right? So first 2 points that I would pick are here. I have 3 that I could pick from. I only need 2, okay? Because remember, a point is x comma y. So I have 1, 2, 3 points to pick from. I'm choosing the first 2. Okay, so on a table that's vertical, same thing. I want to pick these 2 points because those are the 2 that I used from my first one. Okay, so remember, before we can use the slope formula, we have to label the x's and we have to label the y's. Okay, so if I label here x1, x2, y1, y2, right? Because this one is x1, the one that is paired with it has to be y1. Okay, same thing here. This one's x2, so this one has to be your y2. Okay, when we go here and we're labeling, we can say x1, x2. We can say y1, y2. Okay, so now we're ready to use our formula. So if we remember, m is equal to fraction, minus on top, minus on the bottom, y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Okay, remember, we do not have to memorize this. It will be on our star chart. Okay, we have to remember, right, that it's always fraction minus minus, and we have to remember where to get the numbers from, how to get the numbers, okay? So I'm going to start with 8 only because I have it labeled as my y2, right? So I'm going to say 8 minus my y1 was 3. Okay, because I started with 8, I have to start with 7 on the bottom. So I'm going to say 7 minus my x1 is 3. Okay, subtract along the top first, you get 5. Divided by, subtract along the bottom, you get 4. We cannot simplify this any further. We could change it to a decimal, but we're not going to do that right now. So this is my slope. Okay, what I want you to also notice or to realize is that it does not matter which y you start with. Okay, let's say we forgot to label the 1s and 2s, right? y1, y2, and we just called this 3. We started with 3 on accident, right? So still the same slope formula, right? Except this time I'm starting with 3 instead of 8. So I'm going to say 3 minus 8, okay? But if I start with 3, that means I have to start with 3 on the x, right, first. So 3 minus 7. Okay, so if I subtract along the top, 3 minus 8, I get a negative 5. Divided by 3 minus 7 is a negative 4. This can be simplified because it's negative divided by negative. So I get a positive 5/4, which is the same slope that we had gotten up here. Okay, so it does not matter the order in which you select your y's, right? What does matter, however, is how they are lined up here, right? Notice how the 8 and the 7 are together, right? And the 3 are together, right? Even down here, I started with the opposite y, right? But notice how they're still lined up like this. 3, 3, and then the 8 and the 7. If you want to pause the video and draw your graph, you can. I drew it beforehand so I can have more time to explain. So I drew my picture. I have a point on -1, 0, and 0, 1, and then I connected them with a line. I just want to quickly show you another option that we have with a graph. Okay, we can do something called a rise over run, right? So if I want to get from one point to the next point, you are of course going to have grid lines on your coordinate plane, okay? So if we rise and then run, right? We rise up 1, we run 1. So if my rise over run, right, if I'm setting this up, it is 1 over 1. That can be simplified, and my slope is 1. Okay. Okay. We haven't gone into too much detail about rise over run. So if this way is tricky for you right now, you have the option to use the slope formula, right? You're given 2 points. You can label those points x, y, x, y. We'll call these our 1s. We'll call these our 2s. Okay, we can plug them into our slope formula. y1, 0 minus 1. -1 minus 0. If I subtract along the top, I get a -1. Subtract on the bottom, I get a -1. If I divide those two, negative divided by negative is a positive 1. Our slopes are the same. Okay, the last thing I want to talk to you about is your Khan Academy assignments. Okay, you have 3 of them due by Sunday at midnight. Okay, the first one that was assigned to us last class period was slope from 2 points. That's one of them. The new one assigned is slope from graph. And the last one that was assigned to us is slope in a table. Okay, so they all 3 have to be done by midnight. Do not forget. Good luck and have a good weekend.